Welcome to the Kingdom Alliance podcast, where we share stories that matter. At Kingdom Alliance, we are on a mission to ignite a movement of impact and freedom through mentorship and the development of leaders across the globe. You're invited to listen in as we share stories from men and women around the world who are having a massive impact on the kingdom. Here at Kingdom Alliance, we believe that when you change yourself, you change the world. Yay! Welcome back to the Kingdom Alliance podcast. I am so excited to have my guest. I was going to say my friend. She's my friend, but she is a guest today on the podcast. Let me tell you a little bit about Brandie Thomas. She's a wife and a mother. She's multi-passionate and an entrepreneur with over 12 years of experience. She's the co-founder of Victorious Entrepreneurs Rising and an ICF, which is International Coaching Federation certified radiant leader and life coach through Kingdom Alliance. As co-creator also of Rise to Your Purpose, it's a devotional, a podcast, and a signature program. Brandie helps women build sustainable businesses that create kingdom impact while operating in a spirit of rest. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, Brandie and I met about 4 years ago, and I was introduced to her because her sister responded to something that I posted on Facebook, and we became fast friends, having a lot of similarities in our story and how God was working in our lives individually. And I've had the pleasure of getting to know her and watching her just grow as a mother and as a wife. And this podcast episode is specifically about her chapter in our brand new launched book from the Kingdom Alliance Publishing House, Restore My Soul. You are probably your story, Brandie, as we were reading through everybody's stories, your story was the first story that really stood out, like so it was so fine-tuned. So I would love to hear a little bit about the experience of writing. Have you ever written this part of your story down before, like for the world to see?
No, probably not outside of like a Facebook post or maybe like a Facebook Live sharing it. No, I've never written this part of my story down. And there's a lot of it that I had never really told anybody before either.
So what does that experience feel like? So a lot of the stories are super vulnerable. You and I have something in common, that both of us wrote a chapter and both of our mothers wrote a chapter in this book. So, when it comes to sharing sometimes details of your story that nobody's ever heard, I mean, do you worry about that? Like how that's going to impact other people or your family?
No, the only person I really worried about was my adopted son's birth mother. I did change her name in the story, and I haven't given it to her to read yet, but I
really
no, I haven't even told her. I wrestled with telling her or not, but I didn't want, it's my story, and I didn't want anybody else's opinions or feelings necessarily to impact it. And it's not gonna hurt her or impact her negatively in any way. So what I want to do is just give her the book when it comes out. So that was really my only concern.
I mean, I've done a couple of interviews with the authors, and they've kind of shared the similar thing. Like I shared things in my chapter that nobody knew, and the implication of that in some of these really raw, vulnerable stories could feel like to the people that are peripheral to each story could feel I don't know. I don't want to say like an attack, but it can make you feel like, wow, this is about me, even though people change the name. So nobody's going to know who the story's, unless you're intimately involved with the author, you probably wouldn't know. But that is as an author now, how does that feel to be so vulnerable?
Yeah, I actually love vulnerability, and this was my second anthology. And kind of my third author production, I don't know what to call it, thing that I put out into the world. So I've always been really vulnerable with my infertility, health, adoption story. So that part wasn't hard. It was more of like the thoughts that I was thinking and like my internal struggles that I hadn't shared. That was more of like people who care about me are going to read this. And it was more of like, I've protected them from, I didn't want them to feel bad about me. I didn't want them to pity me. I didn't want them to like feel uncomfortable in the situation. And so even though I'm having an internal struggle on the inside, I was like protecting people on the outside so they didn't have to feel uncomfortable with my emotions. So that was probably like, and there's a whole probably therapy session in that. But
That's like another chapter. I feel that makes me sad because I would venture to guess that when the book is public, and by the time that this podcast airs, it will be readily available to everybody. So we'll make sure that there's links in the podcast to that as well. But I feel like your friends and family, when they read that, they're actually going to be sad because they would have liked to have been there.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's just hard. Like one of the parts in the book was my baby shower, and that was probably the most uncomfortable part for me because it's like, it's supposed, right? You're supposed to be excited at your own baby shower, and you're supposed to be, it's a happy occasion. So it's like, how do I be like, sit here and cry in the middle of my baby shower because this is the weirdest, most uncomfortable thing that I've had to go through. Like there's, what you'll see in my chapter is just like a lot of the duality of emotions of like the joy, carrying like the joy simultaneously with like the grief of going through the adoption process, of wrestling with infertility, and wrestling with your dreams and desires or expectations and timelines that look completely different than what you had envisioned for your life. So that's, I think, it's like I was probably still processing to a place where I couldn't even communicate them effectively if I wanted to in that moment anyway.
Was it kind of cathartic to write it down?
Yeah, so like literally the first paragraph, I wrote at like 4 a.m. in a hotel room between my husband and son. Like I'm in a bed with my son and my husband's on the other queen bed or whatever. And I'm like bawling. And I think at one point my husband's like, are you okay? And I'm like, go to sleep. And I had that opening sentence in my head for a long time. So I knew how I wanted to start the chapter. And so, yeah, it was definitely very therapeutic. It was just like I'm in the middle of a big grieving, healing journey anyway. And that was like almost kind of like the beginning of it. And it's just been really cool to see how from that month to like this month, how much God has just healed me and restored me and allowed me just space to share this part of my story.
I know that your perspective, this chapter, is going to ring true with so many women for a number of reasons. I'm not an adoptive mother. I did not struggle with infertility, but I related to so many emotions that you were sharing as a woman, as a mother, and I cried all the way through your chapter, like from the beginning. I cried all the way through, partially because, and it'll make me cry, because I know you and love you.
Yeah.
So. Seeing, hearing you, reading you, not hearing or seeing, but I was seeing and hearing you through through what I was reading. My heart broke for what you were feeling, but also, in that breaking of my heart, in the emotions that I was feeling, I was also so excited for the other women that are going to know that you're speaking for them in this chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, honestly, Michelle, when the opportunity came, I was like, I'm not going to do this book. I was like, I don't even know. I've already done it. I'll let somebody else who's not been a part of an anthology do it before. And I was just like, what would I even write about? And it was almost like Elijah, right? His story, because his story is truly like one of the biggest testimonies in my life to the goodness of God, to the surrendering process, to being rebuilt. Or like one of the lines I have is like, God took all the broken pieces and built me, or put me back together like a mosaic piece of art. And that's what that journey felt like just so much brokenness. And how, like, I think a lot of people think adoption is like the adoptee, the adopted parent is like the hero or the savior, and like that's the farthest thing from the truth. Like Elijah, if anything, saved me. Like
Oh,
he's the girl. Are we just gonna have a crying session today? Like, oh my goodness.
yes.
Like he's just brought so many gifts into my life, and even his birth mother, like I love her so much. And she's actually, maybe I shouldn't share this, but we see her frequently and we text a lot. And so, and just to see her grow into the woman that she is today, because she was 16 when we met, and just like the life choices, like even her, like she doesn't necessarily have a relationship with Jesus yet. And I feel like that's part of why I'm in her life. But just like her sacrifice to me was like such an example of what Jesus did for us on the cross. Like he gave up his body so that and died for us so that we could have eternal life. And I'm just like, she gave up so much just so this baby could have a life that she knew she couldn't give him. And so for me to be able to honor her through an open adoption and just through I just want to honor her in every way that I can, because I just respect and admire her in so many ways, and just the woman that she is and the decision that she made at such a young age. So we just love her.
Yeah, I mean, I think you honored her in the chapter, and I know you honor her all. I mean, I've heard you talk about her for years, and it's a beautiful thing. And I didn't adopt children, but I have experienced the same thing as a parent. And I think that being a parent, no matter how you got there, but being a
Mm-hmm.
parent reveals the nature of God in completely new ways that you don't even experience unless you have the experience of being a parent,
Mm-hmm.
because there is such a dying to self constantly. You
Yes.
truly begin to understand the unconditional nature of God's love for us through your
Mm-hmm.
children who are imperfect and do things like, I mean, Elijah's still little, but as he gets older and makes like, other than just
Yeah.
breaking things and knocking things down, when they get older and they start to make decisions that are like life choice decisions that are
Mm-hmm.
not great, and you see how your heart actually breaks for them. You're not mad. You're sad. You're not disappointed. You don't want to heap shame on them. You're sad and you want better for them. And
Mm-hmm.
I always think to myself, when I feel like I've disappointed God, that is how the way that I have looked at my children, and they've walked through things that were hard, sometimes their own doing. Like, so being a parent, I mean, you explain that in such
Yes.
a beautiful way in your chapter.
Thank you. Yeah, God has definitely been teaching me so much about who he is as a father through my parenting with Elijah. And even yesterday, I'm disciplining my son, and he's kind of upset that he's upset because he's been disciplined, but he still crawls into my lap. And I just think that is so beautiful. Like, even though I'm the one who's technically like disciplining or causing him to be uncomfortable, I'm still also the one he goes to for comfort. And that was just like, that's what God is for me. Like, I don't really like when he disciplines me, but I know I'm still going to crawl into his lap and bawl my eyes out and share my feelings with him. And just to know, like, I have that safe space with Jesus the same way like Elijah has that safe space with me. Is just like, it's been really cool to grow in my faith as I grow as a parent.
It's really parallel. It's been very parallel to me. So I'm like your birth mother. I've
Mm-hmm.
been a parent since I was 16, and so I say, you've heard me say this a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
times, but I identify as a mother. Like, my identity is so deeply rooted in being a mother first. And, I grew up raising my children, and, who God has shown me who he is, the way that he has shown me who
Mm-hmm.
he is through being a parent is really, really profound. And you share your story and this really, really beautiful glimpse into the heart of a number of things. Infertility, it's a huge issue that so many women struggle with, and adoption, which could individually be their own chapter and their own subject, and you have woven them together. God has woven them together in your own story, and then your walk with the Lord, even your marriage. I found your chapter to be really, really, really inspiring to me.
Thank
And
you.
so, somebody that's listening right now, like, what's the What's the number one thing that you hope people take away from your story?
I don't know, because there's so many different things like you just mentioned, but I think when we one of the things I just say in my coaching and just everyday life is just like, you have to come into a posture of surrender so that you can come into a posture to receive. And that was probably the biggest lesson I learned in that journey, is like, when I finally got into that posture of surrender and quit holding on to my infertility journey or my motherhood journey and what that was going to look like, which actually put me in a position of strangling that dream and the vision. And I actually opened my hands. Now I can be in a posture for God to fill my hands and hold my hand and take me places and give me the more that He wants for me, versus me trying to control all the different aspects. So it was really once I started surrendering the journey and the process and the timeline and the expectations, even the desires, over to God, that then I was able to receive the more that He had for me in His perfect way, His perfect timing. And it's better than, you ever imagine. But it's hard to get into that posture sometimes.
Well, in my case, He's had to hit me over the head with a stick to get me down in that posture. Yeah. Come on, learn it. I'm trying to teach you something gently and you're not getting it. Yeah. They hit you over the head. Okay, so Brandie, I said it in your bio. Can you tell like the people that are listening how they can get in touch with you, what you have available for them to support them, help them, walk them through things? Because I know you have a number of ways to connect with people.
Yeah, so I have a website, victoriousentrepreneursrising.com, and I know it's like a word to spell out, but it's just spelled the way the words are. You can go and learn more about my sister and I. We are partnered together, and there's a pop-up, and you get our Proverbs 31 workshop. That'll add you to our email list as well, and listen to our podcast and Rise to Your Purpose. That's kind of where I'm really pouring out my soul to women these days. I've been just trying to step back from social media. Right now, I just feel like God's like, there's so many voices, just hear me. So I'm kind of on this weird relationship with social media right now. But you can also follow me on Facebook, just Brandie with an IE Thomas. And I'm at Live Victorious on Instagram. So those, right now, I'm really serving women through Kingdom Alliance platform, because I just love what we do here. And just God, the fruit here has just been so good in my life. So I love just sharing what we do here with other women. And then I also do system support. So for entrepreneurs who want to build a business online through landing pages, websites, email sequences, all the things tech, I am your tech guru, go-to girl. So that's how I serve.
And by the way, she like lives on a farm now. She makes sourdough. And she like has her little homestead starting.
I've got 6 little chickens, and they're the best. That's a whole nother Instagram channel. That's at Victorious Acres, if you guys are really curious about that.
Wait a minute. Am I not following that? I need to go find that.
I've told you about it, so you should follow me if you haven't already. But yeah,
I'm upset that I probably...
fixer-upper. It was a 1969 house, and we completely gutted it. And that's a whole nother chapter book.
Literally.
It'll be a book of from demo to reno.
Yeah.
God literally gutting me and rebuilding me as like redid that whole house. So
isn't it true? I had it wasn't a home demo, but I had an experience with a tree in my yard that I was like, as the tree was changing seasons and like all the leaves were falling off and dying, I was like dying at the same time. I just hated that tree. I was like, Lord, just let those last leaves dry up and fall off. There was like a little section of green leaves in the center that never got brown. I was pissed. I was like, just let them die, Lord. I was just, so I understand that as you're going through something in your life, like spiritually, God will walk alongside of you to teach you these crazy things. And we'll make sure all of that information is in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be below. And then if you're listening on YouTube, all that information will be in the show notes, because this is a woman you need to connect with. She is brilliant, loving, has wisdom for days, and she will profoundly impact your life. So I just want to say thank you for being part of this amazing project. I foresee that, you probably got a couple books in you.
Yeah, I'm not done writing. That's for sure.
Books. not just chapters, full-blown books.
Yes.
Well, thank you for being here with us today. I love you so much, and I'm lucky because I get to see you soon.
You know,
And
I
for
can't wait.
those of you that are watching, we'll see you next time.